your phones and other electronic devices and move to the center if you possibly can. I don't think it's an issue in this room right now, but if we need to make room for other folks, then please help them out. Accessibility needs, please see somebody in a red volunteer shirt. We'd be happy to help. Trivia day before, and you want to know what it's all about, just ask one of the red shirt folks, or please visit the Get Involved table in the sponsor. I'd be happy to answer your questions. It's an excellent way to get to know other people in the community and really get back to WordPress, which does so much for all of us. And lastly, the WordFest party tonight at the City Museum. Do not forget your badge. You're not going to want to miss the party. All right, and now to introduce Andrea Zoelner. She is the Chief Content Creator at SiteGround and lead organizer for WordCamp Montreal, Canada. Andrea trained as a broadcast journalist and worked in corporate communications before trading in for a career in tech. Now she spends her days developing brand messaging, copy editing, and blogging. When she's not at home in Montreal, she's sampling the digital nomad life and documenting her adventures on her travel blog. Please warm welcome Andrea Zoelner.
Great. Just want to make sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you for making it all the way to the end of the first day of WordCamp US. I think that there's been so many great talks to attend, and one of the interesting things about WordCamp US is that it's an opportunity to see each other in person, which in our industry is not something that we get to do all that often, especially at this scale. And that's kind of the reason why I wanted to present something like this today on how to leverage your online presence to get more clients and better job offers, because so much of what we do is digital these days. Is there anyone in the room, or is that just me?
No,
you guys, yeah?
Yeah.
Is this mic on, or is there a reason? I don't know if there's anything to do about it, but I apologize for that. Right, so when we're talking about interacting online, a lot of us do that day to day with our work, and if you're a freelancer, a lot of the time getting clients can be done online as well. And if you're hoping to get a career in tech, so many companies offer distributed roles, or you have to connect online before you can start that conversation in person on your next career move. And so in this presentation, I'm hoping to share tips on how you can maximize that time you spend in front of your computer screen to really reach out and to grow, whether it's your own business, your freelance business, or in your own career. But before that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Andrea, and I work for SiteGround, as you know. And among many other things, I create and review content, and I weigh in on projects related to communication, messaging, and the English language, really, at SiteGround. But when people find out that I work for SiteGround, they're not so much interested in what I do day to day. They want to know how this big web hosting company in Europe found me, a content creator in Montreal, Canada. And the easiest way for me to tell that whole story is that I was referred by an industry friend who was introduced to me by a former colleague because I had written a blog post that she'd seen online and that she liked. We were put in touch because of that. And that put me on her radar. So when SiteGround started looking for an English-speaking content writer, I came to mind. But I have to stress that before all of that happened, our first interactions were online. She'd seen something that I had published, and that was a really big key factor in my career. If you're visual and you want to follow along on your own devices, you can find the slides for this presentation at this address. I'll leave that up for a second, and I'll be tweeting them out also after if you want to refer back to anything that you see here today. If you're following online through our live stream and you want to submit questions and everything, you can also tweet at me. And later on tonight, I'll try and answer all the questions on Twitter. I'll also be at the after party, so if you want to chat, that's a great time as well. So back to the topic at hand. How to use job hunt, schmooze, or client hunt from behind a computer screen. What if it makes you uncomfortable to kind of put yourself out there online, and maybe you're just better with like human-to-human contact? How do you get behind, like when you're sort of doing it digitally, how do you put yourself out there? And I think a lot of the small businesses is that if you're not online, you don't exist. And that can apply to individuals as well. And it's a little bit harsh and it's a little bit simplistic, but I think it's a good place to start when we talk about using your online presence, using your online profile to really put yourself out there. And I use myself as an example. It really was a key factor. So I want to kind of use that as a starting point, because what good about you and what people find about you online is important. And if we think about it in that way, you know, when opportunities arise for people to hire you for a project or for a job, they're going to look you up because they want to know, one, are you still active in the industry? Maybe you met at a work camp a couple of years ago and you really stood out to that person. They want to know, are you still active? Maybe you went back to school or you've changed careers entirely or industries. So that's important to show that you're still open for business. And the other thing, they want to check if you're as good as they remember. So maybe you really impressed them when they spoke, but they want to remember, you know, can I see some samples? Are they as good as I think? And, you know, if they're presenting you to someone that they're working with, they want to be able to prove that. And for those two reasons alone, I think it's really important that the first step in doing this is polishing your online presence, because you want to make sure that that brochure you have about yourself online is up to date, that it really presents you in the best light possible. So whether you're a job seeker, a freelancer, for hire, or if you're the face of your business, if you are your business, you need to have enough of online presence to look legit, to look like you're open for business. You don't have to be super loud or flashy or a prolific blogger. You don't have to be posting content every hour of the day, but you do have to look like you can be contacted for work and can be hired. So being able to connect online with people around the world is definitely one of the huge perks of our business. And being able to work remotely means that pretty much the whole world is at our disposal. I work from Canada for a company in Europe, so that's just an example. And so another benefit is that we can use our online tools that we know how to use to publish our thoughts, share our knowledge, and showcase our talent in a permanent place that people can access. So all of that content that we publish and we promote compounds, and it's there to kind of build our online portfolio, build our online presence. And so I really recommend starting with that. But of course, when you're online, it's a double-edged sword. It also means that anything that you put online is there for people to find, good or bad. You know, whether you want them to find it or not, it's something to keep in mind that your digital footprint contributes to can you people make of you. That's just the way it is. So you don't have to overhaul your online presence, because that's pretty daunting. But you can start by making tweaks and polishing it up to make sure that you are, you know, ready for people to come find you online. So how can we do that? Well, instead of just going through a checklist, I want to kind of go over a couple of scenarios that we probably have all experienced at one time or another, whether you run your own business or you're looking to kind of treat your career like a business. One of them is maybe your headshots are kind of getting old, or maybe your business branding is outdated or confusing. So sometimes we start a business where we freelance under our own name. Maybe we decide to launch a business under a different name, but it's all us and it's a little bit confusing. Maybe our headshots are kind of getting old. Updating your visual branding is pretty much marketing 101, and it applies to individuals as well. If you're trying to meet people at conferences and you don't look anything like your photo, that can be a tricky problem. It's not the end of the world, but you want to make sure that people absolutely know that they're talking to you, and that when they Google you after, it kind of matches up. And the other thing goes for visual elements. If you've been working under a couple different brands, maybe you came up with a branding or a name for your business, and now you're freelancing under your own name. You just want to make sure that none of that is too confusing and that people are sure that they found the right person. And essentially, it's worth like a really simple way to correct that is just to, take a fresh photo. You can ask your friend to do it in really good lighting, and just make sure that you clean up any old logos. Even better than that, though, is if you have a graphic designer friend or someone you can ask, get them to do some branding for you, so you can have those digital assets and those visual assets, and you can use them on all the platforms that you use online, so that it's super cohesive and you're really treating it like a business. Because that's not really going to land you your dream job, but it can help you look just that much more polished and professional, and that's always a good image to have, even if it's a little superficial. I think it's a good foundation to set, and it's something that makes you more trustworthy and professional. The next thing is who can relate to this. Your website's last blog post was over a year ago. I've definitely been in that camp. I know what it feels like. People can really only manage, a couple of channels at a time. So perhaps you're in a situation where you started blogging and you had momentum and things changed, it wasn't a priority anymore. And so you have this really great content on your blog, but the timestamp of it being kind of, old is sort of bothering you, it's blaring. And so a really quick way to change that or to fix that is just to make those dates and those timestamps on your last post less visible. You can hide them on your homepage. You can keep that content on your site, but just don't advertise that you haven't been blogging for a year. The other thing that you can do is maybe you can't really spend the time writing full-length content, but you're really great and funny and useful on Twitter. If that's your channel where you shine, you can embed that timeline on your own website so people can see that you're still active, you're still contributing, but it's just that you switched the channel that you're most active on. So that's an easy way to. And I think that if you've invested the time in really great content, don't hide it. Just leave it up there and you can update that so that it's current and relevant while still not dedicating time to writing again. But if you love to write, then that's great too. I think that you can dedicate time to it. And even better than just cleaning up the timestamps is to determine a sustainable content strategy for you. So if you want to be publishing and creating content, but the blog is maybe a little bit too much, focus on Twitter, focus on LinkedIn posts, choose a medium that's right for you, and try and determine a strategy that you can stick to and that's more sustainable for you. So what happens if you have a super common name and people can't find you? They can't find the right you. This is tricky. I'm lucky. I have a very unique name, so I'm pretty easy to find. But I know people that have the problem. They can't get their domain name. They can't get the Twitter handle. On Instagram, people can't find them. So what do you do when you do that? Well, one way is just to find an alternative in your name. Maybe you have a middle name that's more unique, or an initial that you can use, or you can also create a different business name for your business that isn't your first and last name. That's something that you can do to set yourself apart. But the long game could be just to really work at creating content, publishing content, being online as much as possible, and having your digital capital increase, and so you can sort of be the person with your name that is the most visible online. Now that's sort of the long game, but it's something that you can do to increase your SEO and have people be able to find you more easily. So, I mean, it's not the easiest answer. The answer really is just publish more. But that's something that you can do so that you can really claim your name. And as soon as people decide that they want to be online in a bigger way, I recommend going on Instagram, going on Twitter, just claiming your handle as soon as you can, getting your domain name as soon as you can, because you never know when someone else with your name or with your same idea is going to want to claim those as well. What do you do when you're struggling to separate your personal and professional online presence? Now, a lot of the tips that I'm giving right now don't directly result in better jobs, better clients, but I'm trying to lay the foundation here so that you can be super comfortable publishing online and you create the boundaries that you need to be able to focus your attention and focus your energy on the channels that are going to yield the most results for you. And sometimes one of the challenges in doing that is determining how much personal information you want to share online, what personal balance with the professional channels you're using you want to create, how much of yourself is part of your business. So if you're struggling to find that separation and to like determine what that looks like for you, the first approach. Maybe Facebook is just going to be personal. You're going to lock it down and only allow close friends and family on Facebook. And maybe you choose LinkedIn for your professional activity and sort of treat those as very separate entities. This is something that can really work, and it's an easier way to make those decisions and not have to think about it too much. But another way, for us, a lot of us, it's a lot more complex. We have friends and colleagues and former classmates and people on Facebook that could be professional contacts, but also they become friends, which is super positive and great. But it's a lot more gray, and maybe you and your personality is actually a big part of your business. Maybe people know you for certain things that are unrelated to your profession, but help them trust you more and want to hire you. So it can be a lot more complicated for a lot of us. And so, and you also never know where your next contract is going to come from. It could be from someone who sees that you post on Facebook that you never considered a professional contact, but all of a sudden they've gotten this new job, they're in a position to make decisions that can really impact your future growth. So I would sit down and think about how much you are part of your brand, determine your brand tone, and kind of make an outline for yourself, almost like a brand guideline, to determine, what are your boundaries for social media and what you want to post on each channel. And try and, do the homework of determining those in advance so you're not doing it on the fly and you're not so stressed about maybe publishing something that you'll regret later on. What if you just started a job that requires you to be active on social media, but you weren't active before, and all of a sudden you're trying to determine, okay, well, what do I post? Are people going to come looking for my personal profile now that I'm sort of the face of this brand? Now that I'm employed, do I have to change the way that I talk on social media or on my blog? Do I have to represent the values of the company that's hired me? All of these can be really tricky questions to navigate. And the quick solution, the good solution, would be to clean up any public content like old photos and questionable posts, just to play it safe. But even better than that, would be to sit down with your team, maybe your employer or your new business partners, or even your employees if that's the situation that you're in, and to determine, what are the expectations? Were you hired to be online and to be the voice of the company, or is that sort of just going to be a byproduct of your new position? What are the expectations in terms of your tone and maybe your political posts or things that are personal? It's really good to get those expectations outright so you're not called into some office later on because you made a mistake and you didn't even know. So those are just a couple of tips, really just about polishing your online presence. So in summary, I think the first thing I'd recommend is updating your photo, your work information, make sure everything is up to date across all the platforms that you want to use so it's all current. Set your boundaries and update your privacy settings according to those new boundaries. You can also delete or turn on privacy settings for things that you don't want to be public and you want to be hidden. Also, this is something that I see so often. Check for broken links to and from your site. If you have a portfolio and you're linking to it in your Twitter bio and your Instagram bio, but the link is broken, that's not going to be a good look. And I see that happen so often. And it's really easy to prevent. And claim your name on social media. If you start wanting to do business under your own name, go on Instagram, go on Twitter, claim your handle, and don't forget to renew your hosting and to renew your domain registration, because you don't want all that hard work to disappear to go for that. Now, how do you establish your expertise and get noticed? Now that you have a great website, you have your Twitter, you have your Instagram, all the channels are up to date, you have your headshot, how do you make sure people start paying attention to you? So, it's not just, you want people to be able to see how valuable you are and that you can bring a lot of great things to their project, to their business, and that you're talented. That's really what you want to communicate. So there's a couple of reasons why you want to communicate that value. And even if you don't have anyone specific in mind that you're trying to impress, just be able to have a strategy, is that potential clients and recruiters will notice you and they'll reach out. That's an easy one. And two, if you meet someone and you want to point them to your online profiles, maybe you meet someone at the after party today and they remember you, and the next day they go see your online profiles. You want to make sure that it's it's clear what your talents are, what your skills are, and that they're impressed when they first see that online presence. And they want to be able to quickly assess your credibility and if they can back up what you told them the night before. And see, if you have solid engagement and you actually have a following and an audience, you can actually leverage that influence and that notoriety when it comes to negotiating your salary or compensation. So that's also something to keep in mind. The first place that I recommend doing this is your website. In my opinion, sharing your expertise online, it all starts with your website. That's your hub. That's the place where you can manage it. And it's also the place where you can then embed things that you're doing elsewhere. And it just becomes a reference for you and for everyone else. And so here's a great list of things that you can put on your website. An about page and contact information. Those are basics. Your work experience. Kind of have a CV, resume on your website that people can reference easily. You want to make sure that kind of also lines up with LinkedIn. So it's extra work, but it's worth it. Samples or case studies. Maybe the projects that you work on aren't super easy to explain. Case studies are a fantastic way to do that. You can show people where you participated in something, the change that you brought to it, how you helped as a consultant, things that are kind of a little tricky to explain. Case studies are a great way to lay that out. testimonials or references, or reviews if you have that kind of a presence online. Those are great ways to get third-party people to share information about their experience with you. If you're a content creator, then you can have a blog on your website. You can have ebooks for download. You can have videos and podcasts. Your website can just be a hub that really shares everything that you've created and done. And of course, links to social media. If you're active elsewhere, tell people about it. Encourage them to follow you, to subscribe to your blog, to engage with you, so that you can keep that conversation going. And if it feels like a full-time job, keeping your website up to date, which it can be, I mean, there's an expression like the cobbler always has the worst shoes. We always feel like, as website creators or marketers, we have the worst website. I recommend doing a seasonal approach. Put it in your calendar every couple months. Go on your website and clean up things, add work experience that you've done, add testimonials or reviews that you've gathered from previous recent projects, and just make sure that it's up to date and fresh, every season. Another great place to be super professionally active is LinkedIn. Literally built for this. So LinkedIn, pretty much all industries, if it's a business, is on LinkedIn. So you can easily contact people in your industry through this platform. And it's really designed for that, not just by its nature, but the tools that they develop for LinkedIn. You can post posts, you can link to your blog, you can have testimonials, you can have endorsements, whatever value those have. And it's just a really great place for professional humble bragging. And it's appropriate. People expect you to have that kind of content on LinkedIn. So they're not as judgmental as when you keep talking about work on Facebook or other places, for example. And so you can get endorsements, and you can get, you can also link your slides if you're a professional speaker because they own SlideShare. So that's a great place, a great hub to host all of your speaking engagements as well. And LinkedIn is a great place where you can look out for companies who are hiring. You can get industry insights. You can contribute to conversations. There are groups on LinkedIn, there are networks. It's really designed to be this digital online networking place for professionals. So I recommend paying attention to it, getting industry trends, and seeing opportunities for you where you can maybe pitch your services or apply for a job that's been posted, and to take advantage of all of those opportunities that people are going to on LinkedIn. Twitter is really popular for our industry. A lot of conversations are happening on Twitter. It's particularly good for tech, for media, for entertainment. So Twitter is a lot more about the conversation. So it's not so static like LinkedIn. A lot of it is real time, it's happening quickly, it's short. So you have to be in the habit of checking Twitter constantly and of being able to participate on the fly in those conversations and to be paying attention. It's very time sensitive, but if you do it right, it can be really fun and really yield good results, because if you're able to participate in those conversations, people remember you, they follow you, and you're able to create that following quite quickly. And you can also be known for different things on Twitter. You can bring value to your followers by maybe doing recaps of news articles or providing insight and things so they don't have to read the full piece. So you can be really quirky and fun and really bring value to the conversations that are happening there. Facebook is a tricky one only because it's such a personal platform. So it grew into a business, but a lot of people have still their personal profiles on Facebook, and if you have a business page, you kind of have to pay to get organic visibility. So it's becoming a little bit trickier, but where Facebook really is solid is groups. So if you're part of a group, if you're part of the WordPress group in your city, if you're part of the advanced hosting group on Facebook, if you're in the different industries that you're operating in, a lot of the times there are Facebook groups. If you start a Facebook group that becomes popular, that's a great way to sort of increase your notoriety and to start being known in your industry. It's a great way to gather feedback through comments, testimonials, and reviews if you have a Facebook business page. And you can also do Facebook Lives and interact with your customers in different ways on Facebook. All you have to do is determine if you're doing this through your personal profile or through a Facebook page. Instagram, a tricky one. I think it's really popular for retail and for traditional influencers and bloggers. But I think it can be a really nice visual tool to do storytelling and to engage with your customers. And stories is one of my favorite features, just to get quick feedback from the people who are following you, from the people you're engaging with. And it can be particularly powerful if you're trying to apply for a marketing position, or if you have your own to showcase what you can do on Instagram and use your own profiles and your own work as a portfolio item when you're Instagram services. So in that case, that's true for all the social media channels. If you're looking to get a job as a social media manager, anything that you do really can serve as proof and evidence of your skills. YouTube. YouTube is so fun, but you have to be able to do video production, and if you can do it right, you can do it really, really well and get a following on YouTube. And I think it's a great way to answer questions and to provide value in tutorials, and a lot of people make their living doing YouTube tutorials, so I recommend getting in on it. Excuse me. But unlike Instagram, which definitely you have to be interacting with other people's pages, YouTube is more about the creator. So what you really should be focusing on is creating really valuable content for the people who are watching your YouTube channel, and using YouTube's built-in tools such as the end screens and the call to actions and the overlays and the descriptions and all of the tools that YouTube offers to build call to actions into the YouTube videos that you publish. So don't just upload a video and walk away. You want to make sure that you're utilizing all of the built-in tools, because YouTube is pretty much the #2 search engine online. So if you're able to transform any content that you create into a YouTube video, you're already going to rank higher because you're offering more and more video content. If you have a podcast, you can also record the visuals of your podcast if you're doing interviews, and that just makes one more thing you can publish to YouTube and to be able to build your capital in that way. And so, and also if you're trying to grow your public speaking opportunities, but you're still struggling to get accepted to some of the big conferences that you want to attend, sometimes publishing, uploading videos that you've done on YouTube can help prove that you're at ease in front of the camera, that you're at ease speaking in public, that you have something to say, and maybe that can be an opportunity to showcase that to the people who are selecting the speakers for the next conference. Forums and Q&A sites are also a great place to become an influencer, an opinion leader, to showcase your knowledge and to become a reference for people. So maybe social media is a little bit too chaotic and diverse, but if you want to zero in on a certain industry, finding the forums and the Q&A sites where those topics are being discussed in a more niche way can be a great way to sort of zero in on the type of industry that you're looking to become popular in or influential in, and to provide really interesting and really great insight for the people who are asking questions in these forums for this Q&A session. So, I mean, there are tons of forums, really depends on the industry. Quora is a really great general Q&A website that you can go on. And when you can provide really great answers to questions, people then start going back to you and looking at you as a reference for that kind of content. And the more you increase in your notoriety, the more people will kind of look at you when it's time to hire someone with your skill set. So the idea is always just to be present online, to be available, to be telling people information that they need and reminding them that you can also provide more if they hire you or if they use you for a contract, and to make sure that they know that you're available for hire at the same time. So that's something that I recommend doing because it's topic-based. It's also a way to get more qualified leads, because if you're in a niche forum, you kind of know the type of person that's on there, and you can go after a more niche clientele that way. If you're into podcasting, is huge these days. It's a great way to share your opinion, but also to network with people that you invite to be on your podcast. So if you have a podcast that you're building, make sure that that podcast is available on different directories. It's a great way to establish the expertise and drive traffic to your site at the same time. And if you have a small audience, start inviting different people to be on your podcast, and hopefully they'll share it with their network, and you'll be able to grow not only your own professional contact list, but also reach a wider audience through the people you invite to be on your podcast. And it's just, again, another great opportunity to be able to share your expertise and to be really of value to people. And then also don't forget to let them know that they can get in touch with you. So you're always giving people a call to action so they can then consider you if you're looking for a career move or to take on more clients. So all of these channels, it can be a lot of work to do them all at once. So I just recommend sitting down and looking at who the clients that you want are, where they're active, where you can get the most return on your investment in terms of time and energy, and to just try and focus on a couple that are really valuable to you. instead of trying to be everywhere at once. So, how can you be engaging and not annoying when you're trying to promote yourself? That's probably one of the trickiest things for people who are shy or for people who, they want to use social media, but they don't want to be that person that's always talking about their multi-level marketing scheme that they've got involved. You don't want to be that person. And so social media and, your blog is different. I feel like when you share on your blog, people are on your site and they understand that you are the star player on your site. That's fine. With social media, people have different expectations. And you don't want to be annoying. And it's often nothing personal, but you can't control how people feel about you, but you can sort of avoid certain pitfalls when you're publishing more and more online. And publishing with the end goal of promoting yourself. Let's be honest, if you're trying to get a new job or you're trying to get more clients, it's self-promotion. So how can you avoid turning people off while you're doing this? Well, you should definitely share your wins. I'm not saying that you should not. But the point is you want to showcase your talent, showcase your skills, and you want to make sure people know that you are valuable and worth hiring. So share product launches, milestones, the promotions that you've gotten, and the cool projects that you're working on, especially if they've gotten some media attention elsewhere. You can share those links and show that. That's like a really great thing to do, and it's a really great way to show to potential clients that you're an attractive hire and that and they should definitely know about your successes. On the flip side, you should also share other things that are interesting, like share your challenges and sharing some content that can be inspiring. You can share opportunities of growth and learning, failures that you've had and lessons learned, and your process too. I think people underestimate the power of sharing sort of a journey or a process and showcasing how you've grown and your troubleshooting skills as you went through that, because a lot of people who are hiring will also be interested in seeing how you dealt with challenges and how you overcame them. And if you're working on projects where you're one member of the team, sharing that journey can also help them understand what your role was in a bigger project. So not just successes, but also challenges. The other thing is you should absolutely give your opinion on social media. I think that's something that's healthy and it's good, and it allows you to be a little bit more human and not so robotic. And people want to know that the person behind the screen is actually a human. So unless you've determined with your employer or with your business partner that you don't want to go into anything that's potentially problematic, I think it's good to share your opinion, and I think it's good to own that. The other thing, though, is you want to share the spotlight with other people and other people's opinions. So one thing that you can really do that is really powerful, use your own platforms to share your opinion, but invite other voices as well. I think it gives people an impression that you're a little bit more diplomatic and that you're easier to work with, that you're open-minded, and that you're willing to share the spotlight with other people. And also, if you're doing that in a context of interviews or podcasts, again, you're growing your network by having more people come and participate. You should absolutely play the leading role in social media, and it's personal. You have your profiles, you have your voice, and on your website, that's you. And if you're trying to gain in leadership as well, that's another great way of increasing your visibility. Maybe that means in person you're organizing events like a local meetup or a group that's for a certain industry. And you can do that online too. You have Facebook groups, you have LinkedIn networks, you have opportunities to gather people and for people to be to know you as the person who started that group. And that's such a great thing to do. But you also want to remember that with leadership, leaders are there to actually serve the community. They're there to serve people. And so you want to make sure that whatever organizing that you're doing, yes, that you're taking a leadership role, but no one thinks that you're just doing this for the visibility. You're actually genuine in wanting to help gather people together, because no one wants to feel like they're a means to an end, or that you're just using them, that they're a stepping stone, and you're really just doing this for your own marketing purposes. So it's important to remember that it's good to be a leader, but you're also doing this to bring people together. You should absolutely bring value in terms of knowledge and information. I think it's really fun to be funny online, but you also want to kind of balance that. So you want to inform, but you also want to entertain. So it's striking a balance of providing insight and information so people can go to you and see that you have value and you have knowledge, but also that you're not just something that they could look up on Wikipedia or elsewhere. They want to see that there's personality behind that. So they'd rather get that information from you because you also entertain them at the same time. You want to be specialized. I think it's really good to zero in on a couple of skills that you happen to do really well or a niche that you are particularly strong in. But you also don't want to become too redundant and boring. You want to be showing that you can evolve and that you're going to be trends, that you're adaptable, that you're constantly learning. You don't want to become a catchphrase like, oh, that's the person that only does this one thing. You want to make sure that you show that you're evolving, just like our industry is. It's something that's highly valuable. You also want to be yourself. I think a lot of people kind of navigating this area of like, how much personal content do I share? How professional do I stay? They, you know, at the end of the day, you want to be a real person and you want to be an individual and want to be unique. And therefore, I highly recommend being just your authentic self. But at the same time, again, social media is such a double-edged sword. Where do you draw the line? And is there such a thing as oversharing online? Absolutely, yes, there is. I think we've all seen it. And you know, one of the struggles of doing that is that people might just remember you for the personal things that you're sharing. And you never want that to undermine your credibility of the professional aspect of sharing. You never want people to just remember you as someone who only talks about themselves or only talks about their struggles or only talks about something that's unrelated to work. You want to make sure that there's always a balance and that you're always, you know, interesting to follow. So I think it's really great to be yourself, but you also don't want to overshare too often. So tricky balance, really hard to do, easy to step over the line, but just something to keep in mind as you determine where you want to be and how you want to be online. At the end of the day, talent is talent, and there's room in the industry for all types of different personalities. So none of these are hard rules. They're all just suggestions or things to think about. And I'm hoping at the end of this presentation, you'll either have a couple of things that you can do, you know, in the next week, like get your headshot. Just things to think about in the long term. Like, what does 2020 look like for you? Are there some goals that you want to go after? Is there something that you can be doing on social media that can help you get there? And that you can just use any of those opportunities to their full advantage to help you with your own business or career growth. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm happy to take any questions.